Divine light. I hope the sun is shining wherever you are and you're living in your greatest purpose. Thank you for your likes, comments, shares, and subscribes. Thank you to all who have booked personal readings, all the channel members, new subscribers. Let's make sure everyone. All right, y'all. So I'm gonna start over. So peace, love, and divine light. I hope the sun is shining wherever you are and you're living in your greatest purpose. Thank you for your likes, comments, shares, subscribes. Thank you to all who have become channel members, all the new subscribers. We really have an awesome community, y'all, and I thank y'all who are always tuned into the lives. Much love, peace, and divine light for everyone. So I want to wait until everyone gets on here. This is going to be really powerful. Okay, this is going to be a very, very powerful live. So if you've tuned in, if you've seen seconds of the live, make sure you get into a space where you can hear, because there's going to be some participation as well. So this is going to be powerful. So make sure that you have whatever it is that you need, your pen and pencil, your tea, your coffee, whatever it is that you get to have by your side, because this is going to be powerful. And it's interesting because the power that we're talking about is part of the title of this live. So, and this is, I don't want, the masculines out there to think that this is about, this is about women. This is a live about women. Don't be mistaken. Don't be fooled. Don't let the title fool you. And I think a lot of times, we mistaken feminine and masculine energy as male, female. That's not the case. We're not talking about male, female. We're talking about energies, okay? It's going to be powerful. So grab your pen, pencil, your water, your coffee, if you drink it, your tea, whatever it is, it's going to be powerful. And I'm going to start first and foremost, honoring, all the forces of the cosmos that are continually. Yeah, I know English is not my first language. All the powerful forces that are consistently, with us. All right. Giving things to, the cosmos, the divine sun, all of that, the moon, the planets, all the energies that exist, Mother Nature, giving thanks. I feel like I don't do that enough. Of course, I do that in my own personal time, and I definitely want to make sure, I acknowledge the forces that exist. Okay. Once in a while, we got to do that. We got to make sure we acknowledge Mother, the divine, Mother. Okay. So make sure you have everything. And before we get started, because I'm 3 minutes in, I'm not going to waste any time today. Before we get started, I'd like for you who are joining this live, all right, whether you've participated before or not, I would like for you to think of a couple of adjectives that describe feminine energy. Okay, so when you think about feminine energy, when you hear the word feminine energy, okay, what comes to mind? And I want you to put that on the live. The first thing that comes to mind, write that down. Okay, and I'm also going to write down a couple of things, and I'm going to share that with you, because that is part of our subject today. Let me make sure I give a shout out. Hey Jem, hey Cortez, how are you? Maat, okay, Cortez, I see what road you're on. Okay, Maat energy, yes, okay. All right, let's see if we can get any more. What do you think of? All right. When you hear the term feminine, when you hear the term divine feminine, what comes to mind? All right. What in first thing that comes to mind? Somebody, Cortez already said Ma'at. Okay. And for those of you who are not familiar with Ma'at energy, Ma'at is about truth, justice, like it's about balance. It's justice. Okay. That is definitely Ma'at energy. So I wrote down a couple of different things. Okay. When we're talking about the divine feminine. Yes, absolutely, Cartez. Yes. All right. So let's first and foremost take, because I'm going to go through, a couple of different things in the title. Okay. First, we're going to look at the word power. All right. That is key. The title of the live is The Power of the Divine Feminine. And again, I'm going to say it again. This is not just a live, talking about, how powerful women are. When we're talking about energy, right? Both male and female, can tap in and tune into divine feminine energy. So we're not talking about men and women. We're talking about energy here. Okay. Let's take the word power. That's the first thing. What is power? So my spirit guides, they were dealing with me about, what it truly means to be powerful. And then as I began meditating about the word power and how is it that some people abuse power, and I also started thinking about the people that I think of that are powerful. And I'm like, wait a minute, the people that are actually powerful, the people that I've seen, that I truly see power in them, they don't look like that kind of power that's out there, the ones that are losing the power. The truly powerful people don't look like the ones that hoard the power. Okay, so my spirit guides started dealing with me with the word power, what it truly means to be powerful, who are the powerful. And then they were like, well, who do you know in your life that you deem powerful? Okay. And I'm like, yeah. And one of the most common denominators that I found when I was thinking about the people that are truly powerful, that I hold in high regard, in highly respect, they're not the kind of people that boast about their power. Okay, so that's one. And so Spirit was just dealing with me, like they don't boast about their power. So their power is very silent. Their power is very quiet. These are some of the most humble people you will ever meet. Like you will never ever suspect, or you would never think that these are, your like society's definition of powerful. Okay? Some of the most powerful people that I know, they don't look like society's definition of power. Their power is very silent. It's very subtle. It's very quiet. And one of the things that I really honor about their power is the humility. They're very humble. And regarding that humility, this is why a lot of people mistaken those folks for being someone that don't have power. And so this is why a lot of times those folks who are humble, they're quite powerful, but they exude a level of humility that for whatever reason, people want to kind of like test them because they don't suspect them as being powerful, right? It's kind of like meeting Superman, okay? It's kind of like meeting Superman as Clark Kent. All right. It's like meeting Superman as Clark Kent. All right. With the glasses in the office, the person is stumbling all over the place. Okay. And not necessarily that part. Right. When you meet Clark Kent, you're not meeting Superman. You're not meeting the figure that everyone knows to be as this extremely powerful being. And so when people meet him, unless you have the eyes to actually see who you're dealing with, that level of humility, it's not everyone that is meant to see that. And it's not for everyone. So for many of you whose power is very quiet and very humble, all right, that's not for everyone to see. Okay. So again, going back to Clark Kent, not everyone will actually see or understand that they're meeting Clark Kent, that they're meeting Superman when they meet Clark Kent. Yet you're meeting a powerful being. So Spirit was dealing with me with that. Power oftentimes, for the most part, the truly powerful people out there are not, they don't have the appearance of power. The physical appearance of power will not always be there. Unless you have the eyes to see, or the spiritual eyes to actually see how powerful that person is. Unless you have the spiritual eye to see that person's power. And oftentimes, if you're not meant to see that person's power for whatever reason, okay? And one other reason could be, you're being protected from something, or it could be that your energy is not allowing you to see that person's power, because that person's power is meant to be protected. Especially when we're dealing with someone who is chosen, someone who has a specific task to accomplish. Not everyone is meant to see their power in the physical. Like, you really have to open up your third eyes to be able to see that person's power. Like, the divine will not allow you to see that power, especially if you have ill intentions against the person. What you think? Like, the divine is just going to expose their chosen? No. So that's part of it. Okay? So that power is quiet. It's humble. It's a beautiful kind of power that only a few are meant to see. So if you're that person that we're speaking to, you're divine masculine or divine feminine, whose power is quiet and humble, okay? The divine made it to be that way. You're not necessarily someone that's meant to be seen by everyone, because your power is meant to be protected. And so I was meditating on this concept of power even further. I was like, oh, okay. So true power is humble. True power is quiet. Okay. True power is not seen by everyone. So what that means is true power has a sense of like, it's hidden. Okay. True power oftentimes is hidden in plain sight for a very specific reason. So when I was thinking about all these attributes, right, I was like, quiet, humble, hidden. I was like, wait a minute. Those are all characteristics of feminine energy. If you think about feminine energy, those are all characteristics of feminine energy. The quietness, right? The humbleness, the aspect that it is not something that is easily seen. Now that part I'm going to delve into. When you think about the moon, right? The moon as an aspect, as an energy, is feminine. The moon is or exudes feminine energy. It is feminine. It has that, we often talk about the dark feminine. That's the moon. That is feminine energy. And so power in itself, true power in itself, when we're talking about true power, we're also talking about the divine feminine. Now, the masculines that are on the live, who truly understand that power has an aspect of duality. Okay, it's male, female. Will also appreciate this. I know some folks will be like, oh, okay, here we go. We're talking about how powerful women, someone who actually knows this will also know that when we're talking about the power of feminine, that does not take away from the power of the divine masculine. And maybe that will be alive for another time. All right. And so since we are, we're discussing the divine feminine, right? So all of those aspects of power that I began meditating on, I was like, wait a minute. Those are characteristics that describe in detail what feminine energy truly is, what divine feminine energy truly is. Like, it's a very quiet energy. It's a very subtle energy. It is oftentimes hidden in plain sight, which is what the moon does. Like the moon is an energy that allows us to appreciate what we call the darkness, okay? What is unseen, what is hidden, okay? Because that is that part of the duality, right? The sun and the moon, male, female, so on and so forth, hot, cold. That is an important aspect of speaking about the duality in nature, right? So going back to different aspects of power that describes the divine feminine. So the moon, the quietness, right? Let's focus on that quiet part now. Okay, now quiet doesn't necessarily mean silent. I think of those two terms as being different. You can be very, or maybe it's the other way around, right? Being subtle doesn't necessarily mean that you don't say anything. It just means that there's a hint of subtlety to what is being said. And so when you exude feminine power, and this is both for male and female energies, that energy is very subtle. That doesn't mean that that energy isn't there. And that's the mistake a lot of people often make, is that divine feminine energy is not powerful because that power is subtle. And it's meant to be subtle because it's part of that duality, right? Because the sun represents that hot aspect of the duality, right? The sun represents the male aspect of the duality. Okay, let's continue with the sun. If you notice, during the day, it's often a lot more a lot more loud. Okay, this is when the sun is out. You see a lot of people doing activities. And at night, which is when the moon, okay, it's like during the day, the sun has its, his time, right? And at night, that feminine energy, okay, the moon now comes out. It's like it's her time. It's her time to shine. And if you notice at night, that's when you tend to see a lot of subtleness. You don't hear a lot of noise. That is all aspects of feminine power, of feminine energy, that a lot of people oftentimes mistaken that subtleness for the lack of. They often mistaking that energy of subtleness for the lack of power or lack of whatever, when in fact it is not. Okay. And so going back to that energy of power, women have these, extraordinary gifts, extraordinary, energies that they have. And many times they are not tuned into it. They're not tapped into it. And part of it is because society has taught us that, society has kind of taught us not to appreciate that subtle aspect of power. Okay. And so because we have been taught to not appreciate that subtle aspect of power, that also means that we've been taught or socialized to not appreciate feminine energy. And I do believe that that's part of why there's so much of an overcompensation at this time, because feminine energy and feminine power, divine feminine power at this time, I feel like the divine mother is her energy, Mother Nature is, her energy is at an all-time high. And it's like she is in the process of revamping, recreating things, because that's what she does. That's what she does. All right. It's like this energy of creation and destruction. She gives life, she takes it away, kind of thing. And then there's a cleansing. So right now what's happening is I feel like it's that time where the divine feminine is demanding to be seen. All right. That power is demanding to be seen. And part of what I was going to say about the compensation, right? What you're also seeing is that a lot of males are kind of like, what you're seeing is that a lot of males are exuding a lot of feminine energy. Like it's what you're seeing right now is like an overcompensation, I would say, of feminine energy within males. Now I know a lot of people are gonna get upset about this. Um, yeah, because that balance is not there. That balance that's supposed to exist in nature is not there. So where women have not been appreciated for quite some time, I do feel like there is a powerful energy where the divine mother is asking for that divine feminine energy to be seen, to be known. Okay? It is time for that divine feminine energy to be seen like never before. And you're seeing it. And sometimes what you're seeing, don't mistaken this. Okay, sometimes what you're seeing is folks kind of like overcompensating for that energy. Okay, overcompensating in a sense that they're trying to tune in and tap into that power in the wrong kind of ways. All right, I'll leave that alone. All right, so let's talk about some additional ways, because I want to make sure we focus on the subject, right? Divine feminine power, all right? Or the power of the divine feminine. So many of you talked about, what characteristics you think of when you think of divine feminine power. And I think Cortez mentioned something about Maat, okay? So I wrote down the moon, that subtle aspect of power. I also wrote down I also wrote down birth, okay? Life. That is a subtle aspect of power that we must not, we shouldn't fail to see and acknowledge the power of life, okay? The power to give life that the divine feminine has. Now, remember we said that feminine energy can also be seen in the divine masculine as well, yet it looks differently. Okay, whereas men, you may see that energy shown in their ability to create things, projects, so on and so forth. For women, one of the most powerful aspects of that energy of being able to give birth in life is bringing a human being into the world. Okay, now that's not to say that one is more powerful than the other. It's just that each of them have their own roles. They have their own place. And again, I'm going to reiterate this. When we're talking about that duality, we're not saying that one is more powerful than the other. Okay, that is what creates balance. And Cortez, I think, you definitely, said something that resonated. Ma'at represents that aspect of duality, which reminds us that it's not a hierarchy, right? It's, two things, two energies, right? Or that aspect of polarity, positive, negative, hot, cold, right? It's complementary. When we say something is when we're talking about the duality of things, we're talking about things being complementary, one not existing without the other. And so when we're going back to speaking of power, right? Someone who's truly powerful knows this. They know that they don't exist in and of themselves. They know that there is no I without we, right? It's that aspect of duality. Someone who's truly powerful respects the power of someone else. Someone who's truly powerful respects the power of someone else because they will understand that their power is part of a greater good, or is part of a greater entity. And so the powers that you see that have ruled, that have overexerted their power for quite some time, many of you will find that those people, those entities are not really powerful. Because what is real power if you are willing to hoard it for yourself? What power do you have? First of all, your concept of power is warped. Okay, you truly don't understand the laws of the universe if you're gonna hoard it for yourself, because you will know that there is no I without we. That power is not meant to be hoarded, it's meant to be shared. If you truly understand the concept of duality, okay, you're not going to hoard the power for yourself. See, that's how you know these folks who have hoarded power for quite some time. That's how you know they lack in their knowledge. Okay, that's how you know these folks are operating out of ignorance. Okay, that's how you know that it's like they're lacking a brain cell. How are you going to try to hoard all the power? There's no, there's no, again, there's no I without the we. And that goes for the energy, that goes for the divine masculine, divine feminine energy as well. Because for quite some time, I believe that different societies have tried to suppress various groups that they know are truly powerful. Like the power of the divine feminine really has been overshadowed by folks who don't truly want you to know, what overstanding the power of the divine feminine can do in your life, even as a male. Okay, even as a divine masculine, there are entities that have wanted you to not know the power of the divine feminine in your life, what that power, what that energy represents. Because all of us have an aspect of the other. The feminine has some aspect of the divine masculine and vice versa. And so for a male, right, for a divine masculine, what that may look like in terms of appreciating the divine feminine, first and foremost, is appreciating those qualities that are discussed as being divine feminine. Right? Learning to have that quiet time and going within. That is an aspect of divine feminine that that divine masculines can tap into. So for the divine masculine out there, like, it's been a disservice to you that society has kept you from knowing the power of the divine feminine within you, because that is what's going to allow you to tune in and tap into your true power. Because if you understand that aspect of duality, then you know that it's to your benefit to tune in and tap into that divine feminine energy. Okay, don't get it twisted. I'm not talking about, homosexuality, and I know that's taboo. Okay, some folks get it twisted. Like, when we say, for males to tap into the divine feminine, I'm not talking about, going completely and becoming a divine feminine. Okay, I'm talking about you being comfortable in your masculine and tapping into divine feminine energy. I want to make sure I'm clear on that. Okay, so it is to your benefit, divine masculine. It is to your benefit to tune in and tap into divine feminine energy, because learning to go within, learning to have that quiet time to go within, that is characteristic of a divine feminine energy. Okay, appreciating the moments of silence, appreciating, those moments of calm, because society kind of wants you to think that you're supposed to be going, at 100 all the time. You're supposed to be hustling and bustling at it all the time. You're not supposed to take any time to think for yourself, to do for yourself. Like, those are all divine feminine energies and divine feminine qualities. So my masculines out there, okay, we do, we love and appreciate y'all. We love and appreciate the energy that you of what you represent, okay, in this dynamic called life, because You play a very significant part. Divine masculine, your energy is tuned in and tap into the sun energy. Without the sun, there is no life. So you see the duality here? Without the sun, everything in this on this earth would cease to exist. It's that duality. All right? So this is not about, okay, who has more power than the other. It's about knowing and being comfortable with who you were meant to be, and also tuning in and tapping into that aspect of duality that brings balance into your life. Because we all know that if there's too much of a certain characteristic within each of us, that we're not balanced. This is why you have these folks out here who have hoarded power. Like, they're completely out of whack right now. Okay? They're losing balance, because what you think is going to happen when you try to hoard all the power and you don't give everyone a chance to live and breathe clean air and drink clean water. Wait. Okay, that was okay. I'm not trying to go on a tangent here, but that's what they're doing. They're like, you have folks out here buying water rights to clean water because they polluted, the water sources. They're polluting it all. It's like, how selfish can you get? How selfish can you be? You see, that is an aspect of not being balanced. Okay? So you want to hoard all the clean water and you want to breathe all the clean air, and you don't want to give everybody else a chance to live and breathe and be, and be great. Okay, I saw a short the other day. It's like, let me be great. I saw this short. This lady was like, oh, they won't let me be great. Okay, you truly have folks out there that are trying not to let folks be great. Because they know if everyone had the opportunity, the chance to have all the stuff that they're hoarding, which they call power, by the way, it's not even power. Are you kidding me? If you have to hoard it, if you have to hoard all the power, how powerful are you? The most powerful people out there know that they're able to share that power and still remain in their power. That's true power. The most powerful people that I have seen, that I have the most respect for, okay, the most powerful people that I have seen, that I have the most respect for, are very quiet and humble in their power. They don't boast about it. They don't try to prevent other people from, being great. They want to see you be great. In fact, someone who's truly powerful will know that they shine. It's like it's someone else's shine is your shine as well. Your shine is not taken away because someone else is shining. Your power is not taken away because of someone else's power if you're truly powerful. So why you got to hoard it, huh? Because you ain't powerful. If you have to hoard it, you're not that powerful. Let's see your power. For those who have hoarded their power for quite some time, let's see how truly powerful you are. Share that power and let's see if you're still powerful. Allow others to have the same rights, the clean water, the clean air. Allow others to see, their true power. That's how we're truly going to know your power. Because right now, whatever you doing, it ain't it. Okay? You hoarding the power and listen, I'm not gonna go on a tangent, y'all. Okay? The power of the divine feminine. It is a power that is subtle. It is quiet. Okay? It honors that aspect of balance, truth, justice, reciprocity. Maat. Okay? Maat, that energy, okay? The people of Kemet truly understood, what power really meant. These are folks that develop complex systems that societies are still trying to overstand today. They're trying to mimic it, yet whatever they're doing, you're not really mimicking Ma'at. Because Ma'at is not about, hoarding power. Ma'at is not about, deceiving and da-da-da and taking life away. Okay? These folks went into these, Egyptian, they went into the civilizations of the people of Kemet, stole their information, okay? Stole their information, and then they try to regurgitate it, in their own evil way, and then they really think they're harnessing the energy of Ma'at. You're not tapping into that power. In fact, you will never tap into that power if you don't learn to truly, exude the energy of Ma'at: truth, justice, reciprocity, fairness, balance. Okay? You're not gonna get it if I don't think they're trying to get it. I think some of these folks, when these like evil people went into the civilizations of Kemet to take the information, I don't think they knew exactly what they were doing. First of all, you were stealing. Okay, they went into these civilizations and they stole the information. That's the first place where you went wrong right there. You stole it. You stole what wasn't yours. You stole the information from the people of Kemet, and then you tried to regurgitate it into these various societies, and now you wonder why these societies are chaotic. The first mistake that you made was you stole it. That goes against Ma'at principles. Okay, and these folks are going to be judged for that. And they're being judged. Many of you know that they're being judged. Okay, so going back to divine feminine power. See, y'all, it's challenging. It's challenging, to talk about divine feminine energy without talking about Ma'at. Okay, so thank you. I think it was Cortez that brought that energy into the space. Ashe. Okay, and Aibobo for bringing Ma'at, okay, her energy into the space, because truth, justice, reciprocity. May we all exude that energy of Ma'at, okay, today and forever. And just know that for many of you, when we're talking about truth, justice, reciprocity, that doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes, okay? First and foremost, you are being raised in a society whose basis is in that mistake, okay? Whatever mistake they made, when they went into these Egyptian temples and stole their information, the people of Kemet, like, you're living in a society whose basis, whose foundation is based on a lie. So it's challenging to live, those Ma'ashin principles. And I think I'm saying it right. It's challenging. And that doesn't mean that you're not going to make mistakes. What's important is to know that every single day you have the opportunity to get better. Okay? You have the opportunity to get better. And, as you learn the lessons, to also learn not to, continually repeat the same mistakes. So tune in and tap into that divine feminine energy. That is definitely Ma'at energy. Okay? The ancestors. Yes. Your ancestors. Cortez, you said, after I correct a mistake, I go up another level. Aibobo, yes. Aibobo and Ashe for that. It's about elevating to your highest self, becoming your highest self, like Ma'at. Okay? The people of Kemet, Isis, like, they knew about these things. They knew about, going from one level of self where you are literally going from the lowest level of self to the highest physical, to the highest spiritual dimension that you are meant to go to. Like, they knew about this. They knew that you are a spiritual being, first and foremost, that is remembering who you are, who you is. Okay? They know this. They knew this as well. You got these folks out here hoarding power that are not trying to remember their higher self. They're trying to, it's like for them, they're doing things the opposite way. They're trying to go to their lowest self. Oh, that is exactly what you're doing when you're hoarding power. When you're not sharing it, you're going to the lowest dimension. Okay, we talking about like ignorance. Okay? We talking about ignorance. We talking about, what's the word? There's a word that they always use for people of African descent. Primitive. They always refer to as Africans as primitive in their books, and yet you're the one that's primitive. Look at what you're doing. Okay? It's like their actions reflect going from, going lower, in honoring, a lower dimension instead of trying to elevate themselves. And why do I say that? Their actions prove it. Okay? The proof is in their pudding, as we say. How do we know this? The proof is in the pudding. Are they sharing their power? Is there now people going hungry all over the world, and that hunger could be eliminated in a drop of a hat within seconds if those people who hoard the wealth would actually share it? It's not that challenging, y'all. It's not that challenging. We really make it that challenging. We really, try to complicate things and, try to act like we don't understand. It could really be simple. So, when they're talking about Africans being primitive, they're the ones that's primitive. Look at what you're doing. You're not even sharing the basic necessities there is. Like, you trying to hoard air. You're trying to hoard clean water. That's not primitive. That's primitive. I love that line from what is it, Black Panther? She's like, gun, so primitive. Anywho, all right, y'all. So continue to tap in and tune into that divine feminine power, okay? And reassure that there is balance, and know that the real power is about sharing it. It's about having balance. It's about acknowledging and respecting the power of the divine masculine as well as the power of the divine feminine. Okay? So much respect, y'all. And thank you to all of those who contributed to the live. Thank you for the energy that you brought, because this live would not be the same without you. Okay? And shout out to Cortez who participated, who gave us I don't think anybody else said anything. I'm not gonna call anybody else out, but wait, let's see. Well, they may not have heard the first part of the live, so it's okay. Oh wait, Jim said calmness. Hey Jim. Yes, absolutely. We're definitely vibing with that. So calmness. Lucky Ladybird, you said submissiveness. I sometimes have an issue with the word submissiveness just because of how it's been used in our society. Yet that is kind of like a dimension of humility, I think, that's definitely honorable. Anybody else said anything? Characteristics of divine feminine energy. Beautiful. Yes. The divine feminine is beautiful. All right, y'all. I hope that you appreciated this information. Please like, comment, share, and subscribe. Make sure you get those thumbs up so that way other folks will get a chance to see this live. Thank you for joining. Thank you for your participation. All right, y'all. Peace, love, and divine light.